Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast as we share the truth concerning these last days and what you must do to save yourself from the violent times that are just ahead. Today's podcast is a word of truth accounting of the end times. The end is coming. The end is near. Today's podcast is entitled End Times 428, Your Victory Over Unrighteousness. How righteousness reverses the damage of unrighteousness within your heart. The podcast objectives are analyze the critical role of honesty in your battles with unrighteousness, reveal how you can consistently make the right decisions, and analyze your battles with unrighteousness. This lesson contains timelines and other visuals. Therefore, if you are listening to the podcast, I advise you to watch the video version on our website or YouTube, or request a PDF of the lesson so you can add the visual effect. Look to the honest man. Shalom, my beloved brothers and sisters, and welcome to day 250 of our exposition of lawlessness. In the most recent podcast, we concluded our intro to righteousness. And now we must analyze how this focal degree of power defeats the focal degree of contempt, which so happens to be one of the most devastating anti-Mashiach forces in our world. Enter unrighteousness. We should start by considering the table to the right, recapping what we have learned about righteousness. The primary objective of righteousness is to empower you to always do what you know is right. And by definition, righteousness is the quality or state of being just, without guilt or sin, consistently executing that which is right according to the Father's will. Now, the great challenge of righteousness is sure, and we have touched on it in prior podcasts. To wit, it is very difficult for men and women to always do what they know is right. Here again, this is largely due to the strength of our sinful nature and the fact that our sinful nature is both strengthened and hardened by contempt more than any other degree of lawlessness. Notwithstanding, we have made some ground in our war with contempt. To wit, we just defeated the spirit of dishonesty. And in doing so, we unlocked the power of truth. Here is why this is so important. It is impossible to walk in the path of righteousness and always do what you know is right if you have not first unlocked the powers of honesty and truth. For behold, righteousness is not only an evolution of honesty, but it is also an evolution of truth. Ergo, where there is no truth, there can be no righteousness. Here lies the inflection, vis-a-vis, by unlocking the power of honesty. You are no longer operating with marginal levels of the truth. Quite the contrary, you are now operating at the highest levels of truth, i.e., the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. My dear friends, this is just one more witness to the power of the linear model of the pinnacle of holiness. Trust me, if you consider any degree of holiness, and then consider the battles you must fight with its corresponding degree of lawlessness. You will never see a path to victory if you are not following the linear model. Why? It's because no such path exists. Consider your battles with unrighteousness. Consider how the vast majority within this nation persistently struggle to always do what they know is right, and how many have already given up their fight. Now, ask yourself the following question: who will find greater success walking in the path of righteousness, an honest man or a liar? The answer is sure. An honest man will have much greater success walking in the path of righteousness than a liar. Here lies the inflection. To wit, the majority within this nation are to some degree liars. And what have we just determined? Vis-a-vis, the dishonest cannot walk in the path of righteousness, which is why all liars will have their part in the lake of fire. My dear friends, this is why the liars within the dying nation of Israel cannot fathom a reality where they always do what they know is right. It is because there is no clear path for them to migrate into this reality. And this is largely because they resist the line upon line approach to perfecting holiness. Heretofore, when it comes to winning your battles with unrighteousness and always doing what you know is right, I hope you can understand. If you want to have enduring success, look to the man who lives by obedience and faith. Look to the honest man. Endorsing the best course of action. Now, despite the amazing work that honesty does in renovating your heart, your war with unrighteousness will be a challenge of epic proportion. Trust me, the power you must unlock and wield to overcome your sinful nature is not only substantial, it is also intelligent. And this is to be expected, for the manner in which unrighteousness poisons your heart is also substantial, and it is very intelligent, wicked as it were. Along these lines, the sequence in which unrighteousness infects your heart and establishes his series of strongholds is very strategic, and thus it must be defeated with a potent combination of spiritual strategy and power. Now, we can easily come to understand this procedure by analyzing the series of battles we fight with unrighteousness. To this end, I am providing you with an illustration. Per the image to the right, the location of the first battle in your war with unrighteousness is strategic and decisive. Enter your physical and spiritual thought alignment centers. Now, per your physical thought alignment center, righteousness finishes the job honesty started. The following treasure box reveals how. Consider this. Whereas honesty ensures the data within your physical thought alignment center is correct, righteousness empowers you to endorse and enforce the best course of action. My dear friends, hear me carefully as I say, this is huge. Remember, your DPU will produce multiple options in the form of intentions for you to consider. And to ensure you make the right decision, righteousness establishes a chain of custody. To wit, he endorses the best intention before it is ever generated by your DPU. Now, the same thing happens with your spiritual alignment center. Vis-a-vis, this faculty determines the best intention for the body as it relates to your spiritual heart. This analysis is then transferred to your DPU. Once there, it is aligned with the corresponding physical data, creating the best intention for the body, the single thread revealing the Father's will. Notwithstanding, your DPU will yet produce multiple intentions, for that is how it is designed. However, it will only produce a small fraction of the number it was producing when yourself was in control of your physical heart. And if you're wondering why, I'll tell you. It is because bad intentions can only evolve from bad data. Remember the saying, my friends: garbage in, garbage out. Now, here's the good news. To wit, you have already succeeded in purging your heart from bad data. Ergo, your heart will be free of bad intentions, and thus it will only generate good intentions from this point on. Here is why. Honesty not only purged your heart from deceit and fraud, but she also provided you with a moral compass. Remember, honesty is the good conscience of your heart. And where there is a good conscience, there can be no bad intentions. And this is how righteousness empowers you to always make the right decision. This is how righteousness empowers you to endorse the best course of action. Your battles with unrighteousness. Now, as powerful as this occasion is, I would like to conclude this podcast by analyzing this development. Explicitly, I want to analyze how righteousness operates in the exact opposite manner as unrighteousness. Consider this. Whereas unrighteousness promotes your worst intentions, righteousness promotes your best intention. That is, the intention that best keeps you in the path of righteousness and the center of the Father's will. Now, along these lines, you must always remember that righteousness is even stronger and more powerful than unrighteousness. And thus, whereas in times past, you may have felt a strong pull to transact sin due to the aggressive nature of unrighteousness, you will now feel an even more powerful and positive force encouraging you to do what you know is right. Not only this, but you will never have any doubt about the way, for we walk by faith and not by sight. Now, this too is the work of righteousness. And yet, I would have you consider how he takes advantage of the environment in your physical heart that was created by dishonesty. Consider this and be amazed. Dishonesty organized the chaos in your heart to make it easier for you to follow one of the many paths of unrighteousness. And yet, once you overcame dishonesty and unrighteousness, the chaos does not automatically revert back to its original state. Quite the contrary, the chaos in your physical heart remains organized. My dear friends, this is one of many scenarios in which we can turn the enemy's strategy on its head. To wit, the spirit of contempt organize the chaos in your heart to magnify all the bad intentions, because it had created an environment where you were predisposed to making bad decisions. But now, due to the power of virtue, you are now predisposed to making good decisions, for your heart is filled with honesty and righteousness. For that reason, the organized chaos can now only serve one purpose, that is to expose every bad intention in your heart. No doubt, this makes it easier for you to walk in the path of righteousness. For there is not only a clear line of demarcation between every good and bad decision. Look here, the spirit of righteousness is guiding you every step of the way, in the way you know is right, and there is no internal opposition, and thus you are more than likely to stay. You can see this by observing the diagram to the right. To wit, every actor, faculty, and component of your heart is now being governed by honesty and righteousness. Now, we've already analyzed the liberation of your DPU. Vis-a-vis, it is no longer forced to work with bad data. Ergo, it can now function properly, which ultimately decreases the stress and strain on your heart. Next, because garbage is no longer being fed into your DPU, your impressions will once again provide you with an accurate scale grading every intention generated by your DPU. And due to the custody chain created by righteousness, your impressions will validate what you have known from the start. That is, there is one intention Yahuwah has designed to guide and to rule your heart. Now, once your impressions are freed and set to right, your feelings will also be free. Along these lines, your feelings are the primary intersection of your physical and spiritual heart. Ergo, as it pertains to your heart, all roads lead to your feelings. And because all the actors and faculties that feed into your feelings are being governed by virtue, your feelings can now be trusted. As a result, your first intention will not only be your best intention, but it will also be aligned with the Father's will. And thus, there will be no personal congress. There is no need. There never was. Likewise, there is no need for a second intention, and one will not be formulated. Rather, the summation of the spirit-led process will be recorded in your cordial summary. Now, from there, the intention will be reconfirmed by your desires, which will in turn harden your plans to walk in the path of righteousness, as well as your execution when the Ruach leads you to walk in this path. All you need is an opportunity, and when it presents itself, you will execute Yahuwah's will of righteousness, which you have made your treasure, the most prized possession within your heart. And this, my friends, is how you win your war against unrighteousness. This is how you ascend to a spiritual plane where you always do what you know is right. And although this victory is pivotal, there is yet one final war you must fight to rid yourself of contempt once and for all. And these battles belong to the critical degree of virtue. Enter purification. We'll begin analyzing this war in the upcoming podcast. Yahuwah bless you until then. Now, here is the final word. You can now become who you ought to be, since your heart has been set free. Brothers and sisters, hear me carefully as I say, there are not many milestones in this quest as crucial as the liberation of your heart from the spiritual disease of contempt. Now, it is true that contempt is the invading army, and thus it is only the first half of the work you must complete to free your heart. And yet, it is the greater half of the work, for your war with prejudice will occur outside of your heart. Not only this, but you must always remember how unrighteousness is associated with the second phase and the progression of contempt. Enter transgression. Now, let me tell you something. Of all the treacherous attributes of this phase, I would simply have you consider and remember the moment you transgress the Father's will is the moment you take leave of his will, vis-a-vis the only safe space in all the earth. Heretofore, I recommend, don't transgress the command. My dear friends, do what you know is right. What you know is right. For where there is truth, there can be no darkness, and we are the children of the light. Now, here is today's assignment. Meditate on all the lessons you have heard this week and ask the Father to give you clarity on anything you are struggling to receive. And if you are led, please feel free to reach out to me. You can fill out a form on our website and let us know what questions you have. And remember, the only question that can truly hurt you is the one you fail to ask. Last but not least, enjoy the upcoming Shabbat and the weekend, and be ready to get back at it next week as we continue to make our calling and election sure in pursuit of the precious and priceless seal of Elohim. Now, here is what's next. We completed today's podcast, End Times 428, Your Victory Over Unrighteousness. And the next podcast is entitled End Times 429, An Intro to Purification, Part 1. I will post this podcast on Monday, March 10th, 2025. Until then, my friends, continue to be led by the Spirit of Elohim. Continue to watch, continue to pray, continue in fasting, and most of all, continue to be focused, for the end is coming. The end is near.